This is a mini PC from a company called Maiyunda. It's the M1 Mini Pro, and I wonder where they got the inspiration for the name and paint scheme for this one. Couldn't be from anyone else. It's pretty unique, I would say. Anyway, I think this is the Pro model. It's a little obscure because there are two different types of CPUs you can get in this device. You have the N100, which is what's in here, or you have the option of an i3 N305. And honestly, I can't really tell you too much about the difference between the Pro model and the non-Pro model, as there isn't really a lot of information out there about it, and their own website doesn't always work. And this thing is also pretty strange in a few other ways as well, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But let's first just go ahead and take a look at this product, and we'll get into some of the weird parts of this later. Now, because I can't actually go to the website and find out what the different SKUs of this have to offer, I can only really go based off of the box. And according to the box, I have the Pro model, but the Pro model doesn't come with the higher end CPU like most Pro model options would have. So I ended up getting the N100 instead of the N305, and it doesn't even list how much memory I have, which I have 8 gigabytes, but it says that their only options are 16 and 32, so that's strange. And also the options for storage are 250, 500, 1 terabyte, and 2 terabyte. Well, I didn't get that either. I'm actually not 100% sure how much storage I have on this, so that's something we'll have to find out. Already, this device is kind of strange because you get the Pro model, but you don't get the maxed out specs or even the mid-range specs, as I would see. But that's okay, because it comes with NVMe on the inside, and we can actually change out the NVMe storage device ourselves, and we can actually upgrade the RAM on this device as well. And on top of all that, we're able to add 4 NVMe drives on these sleds on the front. But we are getting a little ahead of ourselves, so let's just take it back to basics first. Looking at the front of the device, there's actually supposed to be a fascia piece that covers the NVMe slots, but I lost it because the magnets didn't really do a good job of holding it in place anyway, so I don't know, I misplaced it after it fell off one day and never saw it again. And then we also have a huge power button that appears to be stuck on my device, but it doesn't turn on and off, so that's a huge plus. Also, it has 3 USB ports, one of which is a USB 3.0 port, and 2 of which are USB 2.0. We also get a mini SD card slot on the front, which is pretty cool to see. On the rear side of the device are where things get a little bit more interesting. We get 2 more USB 2.0 ports, an HDMI and display port, and then we get quad Ethernet 2.5 gigabit ports, which is awesome. And then it also has a DC 12 volt power inlet on the rear as well. Now, just so you're aware, because the front NVMe slots are actually on sleds, that doesn't mean this is hot swappable. So you won't be able to just pop one in and take one out if something were to go wrong with one of your NVMe drives, but they are quick release, which is pretty cool to see. That's a pretty nice feature, I would say, and gives this device a lot of appeal. But as you're about to see as we go more into this, I kind of have mixed feelings about this device. So let's first start, I guess, by taking a look at the NVMe drives itself and then tearing this thing apart as well. So just taking a quick look at the build quality here, this button's jammed inside and should come out a little bit further, but whatever, it doesn't actually prevent its use or get stuck in place, so not a big deal. Now, also, the drives themselves can be a little difficult to actually push the button to get them to remove. And, oh, this one seems to be stuck. Well, that's not good. Okay, there we go. That was not planned or expected. They normally slide out just fine, kind of like that. That one did have a little bit of resistance, but not too bad. Oh. Okay, yep, we'll take care of that one later. And let's take a look at this one. Yep, comes out perfectly fine. Now, I'm gonna go and tell you, I'm not too big a fan of these sleds for a whole bunch of reasons. And some of them are minor and some of them are greater than the others. My first complaint is the inconsistency in materials. These two here are quite shiny and this one is a little bit more dull, which is kind of strange. I'm not sure how that happened. And also, they seem to have different screws for some of them, which is also a little bit strange, but thankfully they're numbered, so not too big of a deal. Now to gain access to where the NVMe drives themselves would sit, you just simply remove that screw, and then you can remove this cover, and this reveals the actual thermal pad where you would place your NVMe drive. And what's particularly cool about this design is that if you have a longer NVMe drive, this will slide easily back and forth, so you can, basically get a custom fit. Now, how do you know if you put this in the right way? Well, it's actually pretty clever what they've done here. They have this like extra piece of metal that I find gets caught inside of the chassis from time to time. And this is actually keyed, kind of like the key on your NVMe device. So this NVMe drive actually fits perfectly with that key. And I find that the best way to actually insert your NVMe drives is to push them as far forward as they'll go into that little tooth that fits perfectly within the groove of your key. And then, of course, you just slide this forward and it kind of locks in place, but not really. And then what you want to do with this cover piece is actually be extremely careful. So this might be a little difficult to see on camera, but this lip here is actually supposed to be, I guess, upside down. I don't really know how to describe it, but it bends upwards when it's faced like this, and then when it's on the proper way, the lip bends downwards. And you want it to bend downwards so that way it actually fits up underneath this piece here and doesn't raise it up, because if you install this incorrectly, it'll raise this piece up and then your drives will get stuck kind of like this one. Now, that's not what's happened here. I actually am not sure why this one's stuck. I think it may just be because these pieces they're incredibly flimsy, as you can see, and I'm not 100% sure why this one's stuck. It wasn't stuck earlier, but it seems to be stuck now. Anyway, so then to complete your assembly, you just need to make sure you line up the hole with where the sliding piece is that also mounts and secures the NVMe drive in place. And then you also want to make sure that this cover is also slid all the way back. You don't want it, pushing up forward. You actually want it all the way back to the rear. And everything should line up and you'll just be able to screw it in and everything lines up. Now with the screw, you do want to be careful and make sure that you actually screw it all the way down, because if you don't screw it down, it actually leaves a slight bump, and that'll create resistance, and then it'll also get caught on the inside of this thing. So I think that pretty much sums up the state of these sleds. They're not great, they're not bad. There is definitely some room for improvement, but I do like where they're headed with the current design of it, but clearly, more can be done. And then of course, it just, now that everything's keyed, the screw goes facing up, and then you just slide it into the tray, and it generally slides in there pretty good, and you have installed your NVMe drive. Now let's move on to the rest of the device. Now to gain access to the interior, if you want to upgrade the RAM or if you want to upgrade the NVMe drive that's in here, you have these 4 feet that sit, well, right there. Now the glue that's in here is very strong, so you actually don't want to remove these covers. To properly remove these, you just simply unscrew them, and you can do this for all 4 of the feet and everything's hunky-dory. The problem I found is that the glue between all of these feet is inconsistent. So when I first went to go unscrew this, well, the screw broke off and it just kept spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning, and I was never able to remove it. And then of course, when I want to remove the rubber pad that sits on top of these, well, they're glued down so extremely well that you can't open it to gain access to the screw. Now this one I did manage to pry open. It took a lot of effort, but it did come unglued, I suppose. The problem is once you remove this, I guess, rubber pad from the glue, it never sticks the same, which kind of sucks. So at some point in the future, this rubber pad is going to fall off and there's nothing it can do with it. So when this gets stuck like this and, removing the rubber pad becomes extremely difficult, I found it was just easy just to poke a hole into the rubber foot and then just unscrew it. And see, even the glue does a pretty good job of holding my head there. And well, all of my screws have pretty much come loose from the glue, unfortunately, so it's actually extremely difficult to remove this. So with the other feet as well, I just went ahead and, well, poked a hole through the rubber feet to gain access to the screw so I could unscrew this device and remove the hatch that keeps them closed. And honestly, for that type of destructive behavior, it does leave a little bit of a hole, but it's almost impossible to see in some cases. And honestly, you're never going to notice it, so I don't think it's too big of a deal, but I did want to make note of that. Now, removing this is quite simple. You just lift up on it, and then you gain access. And, well, as you can see, here are the 4 NVMe drives, and the build quality of this thing is very strange. Why is it very strange? Well, you're about to find out, and this is, again, the strangest choices were made when building this thing, and there's just no way to really tell you about it. Let me just show you. So just looking at this, everything looks pretty all right, but problem one is they've used double-sided tape to secure the fan to the chassis, which is strange. And in case anyone's wondering, no, I did not damage this tape. That's how it came from the factory. So that's problem number one. Number two is, while the design of this is actually quite good, in some regards anyway, oh, this drive is stuck. I actually can't get it out, so let me just try and pry it out. I don't really know what to do. Okay, we're gonna leave that one there for now, and this one is stuck too. Oh, it came out that time. Huh, strange. That one was stuck earlier. And let's get this out of the way too so we can get a better look on the inside. This one's still stuck. Let's see if I can actually, here. So we'll just leave that there. So to gain access to these devices, there's actually only one thing you need to remove, and that's these 2 screws here. Okay, I can't actually get this one out for some reason. There we go. And this screw here. Now, I can't figure out for the life of me how to remove this device, and I'm deathly ill of breaking it. So all I've done is just simply twisted it out of the way, and that allows us to gain access to the SODIMM slot that's in here. Now, this is actually kind of difficult to release, so if you have big fingers, you're not getting this out. You'll have to definitely use some tools to help you release the pins that's holding the SODIMM slot. Okay, honestly, I can't do this. So let me try and remove this to see if I can get my finger in there another way. Okay, I can't seem to figure out how to remove this, so we're just gonna unscrew the metal bracket that keys the NVMe drives and just get it out of the way. Thankfully, we have access to the interior of this, and the screws are magnetic, so you don't have to worry about losing them, so that's a huge plus, and I do appreciate magnetic screws. Oh, there actually does appear to be some damage on this, and that is probably why. I don't remember seeing this before, but yeah, it does appear to be caught. Maybe we could just pinch it since it's just aluminum, and hopefully that's fixed. All right, now we can get that out of the way. Now we can move this, and nope, I still can't really get my finger in here. I mean, I can, but my finger then blocks the SODIMM slot from actually being able to release. Oh, there we go. I managed to get it. All right, so this is our single SODIMM of 8 gigabit memory, and this is DDR5. It's pretty cool to see, and there's only 1 slot in here. There are not 2, so you will only be able to stick up to a 32 gigabyte stick of memory in here because this is an N100. And here's the battery if you would like to reset the BIOS for any reason. And as far as I can tell, there's actually no way to remove this. I'm not really sure what's holding it down. I thought it might be this screw, but if you remove this screw, it's still stuck in here. And as far as I can tell, there's also no way to remove this face or the other face. And I'm definitely afraid of actually damaging this to the point where it's not usable. So unfortunately, I can't take it apart because they've done too good of a job to make sure that it just stays in here. Now there is a little bit of wiggle, but you're not getting it removed. Anyway, here is the other NVMe drive. Now this is the one that comes with the device, and let's see if we can remove this. And it looks like we have pretty good, easy access to the screw that's holding it down. Oh, there we go. And I guess there might be thermal paste or something holding it in place. You can do, there we go. A little awkward to get it out, but not too bad. So let's see, what is this? This is from NetAC. I've never heard of that brand. This is PCIe 3x4, which is cool. And this is only 128 gigs. So the box says that this comes in 256 and greater, but for the Pro version only comes with 128. Interesting. Okay, well, that's the NVMe drive. This thing's probably not very good, but whatever. Now, one thing I did notice is there's actually, this is gonna be so hard to show on camera, there's actually another slot here for another NVMe drive. And let's see if I can get you guys a good angle. Oh, one moment. Look closely, you can actually see right there that there is another NVMe, or maybe M.2 slot, I should say, not NVMe, but there's another M.2 slot in there. So it looks like we could actually mount another NVMe drive if we wanted to in there, but getting to that is extremely difficult. We would have to remove this piece, as there's no way to get a screwdriver down in here, as the PCB kind of blocks things and the screws themselves. Like, you would need a really long screw to get in there, and I just don't have one. This is the smallest tool I have and doesn't fit. And I don't know how to remove these. And like I said, I'm pretty afraid of breaking them. Well, that's about as far as the teardown as I'm gonna be able to give you guys. Unfortunately, I just can't figure out how else to take this thing apart. And I think the only way that I would be able to take it apart is through a destructive method. And I'm just not willing to do that. Now, one cool thing I didn't mention earlier that I just remembered about, this does have an onboard speaker, so it will beep at you if something goes wrong with the BIOS. Well, it should beep at you anyway. I haven't actually tested that. That is just my assumption. But it's still cool to see this has an onboard speaker. That's a really nice touch. Now let's see if I can easily get this RAM installed. Ah, wow, actually installing the RAM was significantly easier than removing it. Like, if you have big hands, I have small hands. If you have big hands, there's no way in heck you'll be able to service this thing. Remember earlier when I said this thing was a little bit weird or strange? Well, there is an elephant in the room. For instance, for some reason, when you only install one NVMe drive, not including the one that's pre-installed, but just one more in one of the included drive bays, the operating system can't see it. And if you give me a second to get this thing reassembled, I'll show you what I mean. So let's go install Windows on this device like we normally would. I have a bootable ISO here. And I'm just going to use the front USB 3.0 port because that's the, well, fastest port. And power this on. It powered on. That fan, by the way, is actually quite quiet, at least on boot. We'll see how loud it gets when the operating system is actually, well, doing something. Okay, so now that we're going through the installation process of Windows, I can actually show you what I mean. So let's just kind of next through here really quickly, and let's click on Custom Partition. Now you'll see there's only one partition available, which thankfully just so happens to be the 128 gigabyte hard drive, SSD that's in here. So at least that's showing up. But nonetheless, it should be showing 2 NVMe drives, and for some reason it doesn't. And just to show you that these things are in fact not hot swappable, let's go ahead and add a second NVMe drive somewhat quickly here if we can. All right, let's go ahead and slide in our second drive. It's all the way in. Now, if we go back to Windows and hit refresh, it should try and discover any new devices upon hitting refresh, and well, nothing appears, and that's because these are not hot swappable drives. And that's most likely because the BIOS is not detecting anything new and thus presenting it to the operating system. So let's reboot. Okay, rebooted back into Windows, and I just need to click past the license agreement here, just click next. It won't click on custom again. And now, miraculously, we see 3 total NVMe drives, which were previously not there. So it is a little strange that there has to be at least 2 NVMe drives plugged in for you to see your first NVMe drive. That's a little strange. I wonder if it has the same problem if you were to put 2 NVMe drives in the internal mounting spots, the internal M.2 slots. Like, would they actually show up? Don't know. That's not something, unfortunately, I could test because I just don't know how to get in there to put an NVMe drive. But for everyone else, they're saying, well, that's just Windows being Windows. I actually confirmed this on Linux as well. It seems to have to do something with the BIOS, and I have absolutely no idea what it could be. Speaking of BIOS, let's actually go back a couple of steps and take a look at the BIOS and see what options are available on the inside. To get in the BIOS of this thing, I'm pretty sure you just need to hit delete several times. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just hitting delete. Hopefully that just lets me in. Okay, yep, delete is the answer. So now that we're into the BIOS, we can have a look around at some of our options. Now, again, we can see that this is an Intel Alder Lake N100 running at 800 megahertz. I can't scroll down to that, so you'll just have to read along with me. This is 4 cores, 4 threads. Of course, we have a total memory of 8,192 megabytes, I mean. That's running at a frequency of 4,800 mega transfers. So all looks well so far. So going over the advanced tab, I'm just going to quickly go through a lot of these options just so you can see what we have. In these, we're not going to go through each of them specifically. So the first one up here is connectivity configuration. Looks like we have a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capability. That's pretty cool. Coexist, discrete Bluetooth interface via USB. Okay, maybe I'm not sure what all of these do, but nonetheless, just going to quickly go through some of them just to see what's what and hopefully give you guys an idea of everything that's in here. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on each of these options, of course, but hopefully, if you're not interested in this part, which I totally understand because it's going to be kind of boring, I think, just looking at the BIOS, definitely feel free to skip around or skip ahead. But if you are interested in the BIOS, well, here you go. This is going to be the most comprehensive look I think you'll find in the BIOS of this device. Got some turbo modes. Let's view our options in here. We've got some power limit settings, power limit options on the cores. Not really sure what to do with any of this. Some TDP options. Now, I'm not sure who's going to be interested in this, but I know someone out there is. Oh, it looks like we have some acoustic noise settings. Everything is disabled. We could enable this. We have some ramp up times, ramp down times. I'm going to leave it disabled. It's not too loud, at least right now anyway. What is this? Core / IA VR voltage regulation, I think this is. We have a GT. This looks like the same thing. And then RFI frequency. I believe this might be for the Bluetooth or maybe the Wi-Fi. I didn't even know this thing had Wi-Fi. That's a surprise to me. That was all just under CPU. Wow, we have a ton of options to go through. FIPS, looks like FIPS mode is disabled. That's pretty cool to see that in the BIOS. PTT firmware. Does this thing have a TPM module? That's actually what I'm curious to know about, because if it has TPM, we could install Windows 11 on it. Yep, It has a TPM 2.0 interface type of CRB, and we can actually select between 1.2 and 2.0. Now, I believe Windows 11 requires a minimum of 2.0. We're not going to install Windows 11. I'm just going to install Windows 10, but yep, we have a TPM module on here. TPM module, a TP module on here. Wow. It's like ATM machine. Oh, jeez. I skipped through some of these, didn't I? Just to go look straight for the TPM. And I would definitely say you might have to pause the video on some of this part. Because, like, again, even I don't want to spend too much time in here because I just want to boot this thing up and, you know, kind of play around with it to see what we can kind of expect. Right now, it does seem pretty zippy. Looks like we have some virtualization support. That's cool. We can, what is this? Can we disable? Oh, this power delay. It sees my USB drive. I wonder what this is. I'm not sure what this is. This may be the onboard SSD, the SSD that's built in, or internal to the machine anyway. Network stack is disabled. Oh, this is for Pixie booting. UEFI network stuff. That's cool. So it can do that too. How for some module configuration? I don't know what this is for. NVMe configuration. It does see all my NVMe drives. I actually have one that's different than the others, but it sees them all. Self-test is, we can do some self-testing here. 128, yeah, it's tiny, all right. I don't see any hardware RAID options just yet. It's another thing we're looking for. Let's go over to chipset. Memory configuration. Here's all of our memory options. We have some DDR4 options in here, as well as DDR5. I wonder if that means this thing can support DDR4. I guess it depends on the CPU, right? So maybe not. Pretty good amount of graphics options. We can select a primary display. If we had some sort of other graphics, I guess we could mess with that. This could be important, disabling the graphics. So if you plan to do pass-through, you may need to disable the internal graphics so that way you can pass it through to your virtual machine. But I think this probably disables at the BIOS level, so you actually wouldn't be able to pass through it, but the option's there. You know it exists now. I don't know what PEI display stands for, but that's something new. Looks like a pretty healthy amount of options. PCI Express slot. Oh, wow, that's a lot of stuff. I don't even know what all this does. There's a lot of stuff in here disabled. This seems like a pretty nice BIOS. I mean, it's just filled with options. These are all the same options. All right, so that's stop grant. We got VTDC support. Okay, PC8, PCI Express configuration. Maybe in here we can find some stuff about, no, I don't think so. SATA configuration. SATA controllers are enabled. We have AHCI mode. We don't have an NVMe mode. Hot plug disabled. I don't think this thing has SATA ports, so I'm not going to get too hung up on that. USB configuration. Overcurrent, wow, okay. USB 3.1 port speed, 0. USB port disable override. It's like per pen. Security configuration. All right, I don't know what that is. HD audio. I don't think this thing has onboard audio. I'm not sure what all this is. It'd be real nice if their website worked. Then I could actually, you know, read about the device instead of having to just figure it out. Security, boot options. So here are all the boot options. It's got a bunch of disabled ones. We have UEFI. NVMe, hard disk, CD, SD, of course, that's important. Or could be important if you wanted to run Proxmox on this. That looks like everything. So let's go ahead and boot into Windows. So for anyone out there that's made it this far into the video, I'd be curious to know what you would use this device for, because honestly for me, I wouldn't really use it as a mini PC because it has 4 NVMe drives and it also has 4 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports. Like maybe you could do virtualization on it, but the N100 is a little strange. Like it doesn't have enough cores or threads, in my opinion, to support multiple VMs. Now, if we had the i3 or the N305 version, you know, you could have one VM assigned to each one of those ports. That would be pretty cool. But otherwise, I don't really know what I would do with this. Maybe like a low-powered Plex server or Jellyfin server. If I had a camper van, like I could put some movies and stuff on there, but then I feel like what's the point of having that when you have, you know, quad NVMe drives, right? Like it doesn't really make sense to use, at least to me anyway, it doesn't make sense to use as a media server, but you can totally do that. Now, originally I did want to install Unraid on this, and I probably will, but I'm not 100% sure. Let's go, come on, just get Windows installed. But for now, we're just going to check out what Windows has to offer, and we'll probably play around with it a little bit more after this. This is going to be a pretty long video. It's going to be pretty long, I already tell. Just because we're literally playtesting right now. We're not, you know, this isn't like a fabricated video. I'm seeing this real time, well, real time for me, and then you guys are seeing the recorded version of my real-time reactions. Like, all of this is new. I haven't pre-planned any of this, so that's why this video is going to run a little long. And I need a networking cable. I want to plug this in the internet. All right, so I've run into my first issue here, as you can see. Let's get rid of this maybe later nonsense. So Windows 10 was incapable of discovering the drivers for the onboard Ethernet. So I'm trying to find information about what type of Ethernet devices may have. I suspect it's Intel, but I'm not 100% sure. And well, unfortunately, there isn't too much information out there about this device, well, to that level that I'm looking for. And without their webpage working, I genuinely can't find this information. Actually, it looks like Alibaba has a listing here. Let's click on, okay, yep. So it says that it's Intel i226V. So let's try and download those drivers and manually add them. I should have just used my laptop from the beginning. That would have been helpful. So I'll do that and I'll be right back. So right now we have a pretty good test actually. I'm extracting the drivers, all of the drivers in fact, for the Intel i226 Ethernet drivers or whatever. So it's like a zip file, and it's 838 megabytes in size, and it's gonna take about 4 minutes to decompress or unzip those 800 megabytes. That's a pretty good test, I think. Because, you know, obviously unzipping files can be very important or give us pretty good insight on what to expect. And this is actually unzipping from a external USB 3.0 USB device. So you can see here it's a USB that's extracting from and extracting to. So we could technically also be limited by the speed of that USB device, but it says that we're using 100% of our CPU, but it still feels very, I don't know what the right word is. It still feels very functional. Like it doesn't feel sluggish. Like it still feels good, still feels usable. Unfortunately, oh, hey, the drivers got installed somehow. What's going on here? I haven't done anything yet. I just extracted them. Okay, well, I didn't even notice this, but it appears to be working now, so that's cool. Now, I think we should be more than capable of watching, you know, 4K YouTube. There shouldn't be any issues there. And see if we can watch some 4K content. I can confirm there is no audio coming out of this device, which makes sense. It doesn't have a speaker as far as I'm aware. Let's watch. This should be an interesting enough video. Turn off autoplay. It is feeling a little sluggish now with this decompression going on in the back, so I'm just gonna kill this and get rid of this. We don't need any of this stuff. We're still running at 100% CPU playing these advertisements. It's coming down. Okay, it's coming down. No, it's still at 100%. 82, 99%. We're not doing anything except watching an ad. All right, not a big deal. Not a big deal. It's fine. It's fine. Oh my gosh, no thanks. No, not call. Where's the skip button? There it is. Okay. Let's change this to 4K. Oh, it's a little sluggish. It's a little sluggish. Let's pause that real quick and just let it sit for a second. Let's try again. Okay. It's a little sluggish. But okay, that's not good. I think something's wrong with the Ethernet drivers. I'm gonna extract the drivers before we try and do this. Something doesn't seem right there. So let's start this over again. Because I don't trust it. So we have the proper drivers installed this time, and even just sitting here at the Windows desktop, we're using about 7 to 12% of our CPU, which personally I think is kind of high when we're not really doing anything. But whatever. Let's go back and try and play YouTube video again. And I actually added a soundbar to this, so I should actually have audio now to make sure that the audio is also not skipping while the video is acting funny. So let's do this one more time.
I get absolutely thrilled when you guys
Audio is working.
Some people just know they could say
Audio is working a little too well, if you ask me.
First. Like, you know, to check the sign first.
Let's turn this down. Skip. Okay, so even with the proper network drivers installed, the video still looks a little sluggish. Now, and this is 4K, but this CPU, I believe, I'm gonna double check this right now. I believe this CPU should be more than capable of playing 4K content. So, let's see here. In 100. Yeah, so according to the Intel spec page, this should be able to play HDMI at 4K, true 4K at 60 Hertz. Now, we should be able to do that, but this does not look like it's playing 4K content very well to me. Well, actually, that says max resolution. I take that back. It doesn't mean that it can play it very well, but it does support 4K. In theory, this should be able to play 4K content if it supports 4K, I think, anyway. Yeah, this doesn't look like it's playing very well. But in this unit's defense, I am actually using a capture card, and then the video is going from the capture card to the screen, so maybe there's a small chance that my 144 Hertz graphics card is adding a bit of latency in here, and that's why it looks like it's not playing very well for me. But even on my reference screen, it still looks just ever so slightly sluggish. So what we'll do is I'll plug this into my 4K monitor and just do this test natively and see if it performs any better, but I don't think it will. I wouldn't even, at this point, and this is at 1920 by 1080, by the way. We're not even at 4K. This is 1920 by 1080, and it's not good right now. So I've got this thing connected to my 4K HDR monitor with all the bells and whistles, and I actually genuinely did not expect this. But I can enable HDR here, and the screen goes black because it's enabling HDR. But allegedly the N100 supports HDR, which I was not aware of. So let's go try this one more time, and hopefully this works. Now, I do suspect the reason why I was having issues is because of that capture card. So we're going to try this again with... All right, audio still works. That's good. Probably just got a copyright strike on that one. Let's expand this to full screen. Come on. All right, we're at 4K. Now, I don't think this supports HDR, but I'm going to manually change it to 4K anyway, just in case. And so far, so good. So let's skip to the best part here. Okay, yeah, that's actually a lot better. That's a lot better than it was before. It's not nearly as sluggish as I thought it was. My capture card has to be in the way, or has to be doing something wrong. Now, this is going to be hard for me to show you on camera, but this actually looks really good, mostly because of my monitor. But, I mean, it seems to be handling the colors really well. The video is very smooth. This looks appropriate. This looks like it's about 60 hertz. But no, it looks great. It's playing fine. I'm very happy with this. This is really good. So I wanted to do an HDR 4K test. So I have a 4K video pulled up behind me, and well, as you can see, 4K HDR not so good as well, it just loaded there. And honestly, the video is already kind of sluggish and jittery a little bit. So I'm guessing that this thing can't handle 4K HDR content very well, but it can handle 4K content plenty fine, so long as it's not HDR. So let's just turn HDR off for now and continue on as if it doesn't exist. So I know it's probably gonna be a little bit difficult to see, but I did a crystal mark test on the NVMe drive that comes with the device. We did a test count of 5, and our test size was 4 gigabytes. And these were the results. Not terrible, not great. But, you know, I don't know what you can expect from just a no name brand NVMe drive. I actually want to switch this down to 1 gigabyte and see if this improves at all. So I'm going to let that run, and then we'll check it out when it's done. All right, so the second test is done. You know, a test count of 5 and 1 gigabyte test size. Results didn't change much, so we're just going to move on for this because I don't think it's interesting. And I'm not really sure what else to test from here, but I'll figure something out, I think. In typical fashion, I went ahead and installed Unraid onto the M1 Mini, and I've done GPU pass-through, or Intel QuickSync pass-through, actually, not GPU pass-through, iGPU pass-through, whatever you want to call it. It's already working, it's set up. The renderer is doing about 66% of the workload. I'm going to move this off to another screen here. And I've got Jellyfin going, and a 4K HDR movie that is playing, or that I can play here. And honestly, it plays really well. Now, this is a single stream. I suspect that this thing will probably be best used for single streams. I don't think you'll want to do multiple 4K HDR videos at the same time. But it is an HDR because we don't see any weird coloring effects, and I mean, it's playing smoothly. So you could use this thing as a media server if you wanted for any of your content. So for instance, if you are if you're traveling and you're taking this, you could take this thing around in a camper. It's got NVMe storage, so you don't have to worry about the hard drives getting damaged. Now, is it the best device for this? No, I think the LinkStation N1 would be a better option because you have the option of using 2.5-inch drives instead. So you could get more storage more cheaply on a device like that instead of trying to get more storage on NVMe for way more money. But the prices of NVMe storage are coming down, so maybe in the future something like this would make a lot more sense. But I don't think it makes sense for the long term. So let's zoom in here a little bit and show you that very nice clear footage. And this camera's 60 frames. This movie's probably in 30 frames. But yeah, I mean, I think that looks pretty good. It probably looks pretty good for you guys, I hope. I'm not entirely sure what it looks like for you guys, but it looks great. Looks like 4K footage to me. It's time to talk power consumption. So right now I have Unraid loaded on the M1 Mini, as you just saw, and it's not playing any video currently. It's just sitting there idle. It is displaying the web UI on an external system, and also it is displaying, well, the operating system on a monitor. And right now the power consumption is between 19 to 22 watts. Just doing that right there. So completely idle. Otherwise, it's not doing any tasks that I'm aware of in the foreground or in the background. Now, while playing my 4K HDR movie, as well as having a couple other windows monitoring the server and its activities, or the M1 Mini and its activities, the wattage that it's using right now is between 27 to 28 watts, which is still pretty low considering the number of NVMe drives that it has inside of it and the activity that it's performing at the moment, transcoding that video in this case. So I think that's still pretty low. So if we remove the additional NVMe drives, it would definitely be even lower. Of course, you'd have to have a minimum of 3 if you needed additional storage, or you could just swap out the 128 that comes with the device and put in maybe a 4 terabyte or larger, and maybe that would be enough for you. But again, I don't know. This device just doesn't really make sense to me, and who is this for, and what are they looking to get out of a device like this? At least with the LinkStation N1, it has, those 2.5 inch drives like we mentioned earlier. So I don't know. It's still a very interesting device. I think it may have a place in the market. I just don't know where in the market that it is. So with the power consumption out of the way, I honestly am not entirely sure what's left to show you guys with this. Obviously, you wouldn't game on this. It just has an N100. You could probably set up some servers like Minecraft, but I don't think you're going to have a good time. I think this would be really good for just basic web browsing and also basic media storage / file sharing. Otherwise, I don't really know if I would buy this, or even recommend it to anyone. It's just weird. It doesn't make sense. If it would have just came with the N305, it would make a lot more sense, and I think it'd be a lot better. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the video or in the comment section below, and I'd definitely be interested to know what they are. So I'm gonna end the video here because, again, there's really nothing that's left to be said. So I want to thank you each and all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Peace.